Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the joint committee between Assembly Ways and Means and Senate Finance for the Subcommittee on Public Safety, Transportation, and Natural Resources. With that, Committee Secretary, will you please take roll?
Senator Brooks.
Here.
Senator Dennis.
Here.
Senator Gokachia.
Here.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Here.
Assemblywoman Peters.
Here.
Assemblywoman Titus.
Here.
Assemblywoman Tolles.
Here.
Assemblyman Watts.
Here.
And Chair Miller.
Here. Thank you for that. Just a few housekeeping items. Again, we will have public comment at the end of our briefings. Also, if you want to register for that, you may do so on the agenda that's posted on Nellis. Also would like everyone that's joining us and participating to know that we will have members coming and going throughout the presentations. It's just, this is the time of season where members have to go and present their own bills in other committees. So if you see their camera going off, that's what's happening. They're actually in another committee presenting. So with that, we'll go ahead, and we have a few different budgets we will hear from today. We have the account for off-highway vehicles, state parks, state lands, and the division of outdoor recreation. So with our first budget from the account for off-highway vehicles, I believe we have, and please correct me so I pronounce this correctly, Nikhil Narhidi. Is that who is presenting today?
Good morning, Chair Miller.
Good morning. How did I do? Did I get anywhere close to?
Very close. Yeah, thank you. Nikhil Narkade.
I killed it. Oh, Narkade. Okay. Yeah, I butchered that one pretty badly. Okay, Narkade. Thank you so much. We are ready whenever you are.
Thank you. Good morning, Assemblywoman Miller, Senator Dennis, and members of the committees. Thank you for this opportunity to present the budget account 4285 on the Nevada Off-Highway Vehicles Program. My name is Nikhil Narkade, and I'm the manager for the Off-Highway Vehicles Program. Our mission statement is to promote safe and responsible use of Nevada's outstanding off-highway vehicle recreation opportunities and to ensure today's registration dollars create tomorrow's off-highway adventures. The account for off-highway vehicles is a revolving account where we use the registration dollars in the form of grant funds awarded by a 9-member gubernatorial commission. These funds are used to improve OHV recreation around the state and encourage responsible use of our natural areas. Like I said, the bread and butter of the program is to administer an OHV grant program exceeding awards of approximately $1 million per year. We want to promote safe and responsible OHV recreation. We'd like to expand the quantity and quality of OHV opportunities around the state through kind of united messaging under our program's umbrella. One item that we've noticed over the past 2 years is the difficulty in obtaining an OHV registration and the complexity of the registration process. This results in very low compliance with Nevada Revised Statute 490. Therefore, we are tracking Senate Bill 170 that aims to simplify that registration process and put that sticker in the hands of the user. This slide is a depiction of where we've spent the OHV registration dollars since 2019. Annually, we award approximately $1 million of funding, and the graphic to viewers' right shows exactly where those projects are. The color coding is the different categories that we've been able to fund. Things like education and outreach projects, trail building, law enforcement are all important ways that we use these monies to enhance or encourage responsible use of OHV recreation. You can see in 2019, we had a strong 17 projects, just under $1 million awarded, and that was through a successful campaign in 2018, providing outreach to different communities in Nevada, notifying them about the grant program. Again, in 2020, we awarded just over $1 million for 18 strong projects. Once again, this is specifically due to our program's ability to travel statewide and build our partnerships with our land managers and the OHV user groups. 2021, the grants that were awarded in December of 2020 were significantly lower than previous years. I would attribute it directly to the inability to travel, and trying to build these partnerships kind of online or through Zoom meetings was strategically more difficult. One of our largest investments from the OHV program in the past 2 years is the Nevada Mapping Collaborative. It was established in 2018. It's funded annually by a grant from the OHV program, as well as some multiple other funding sources, including federal funds from the Recreation Trails program. The greatest thing about this project is the interagency collaboration. This team works with our OHV program across the state and across land managers to identify the greatest riding areas that the state has to offer. Currently, we have 74,540 miles of trail inventory, and we're in the process of sorting through that to make sure that we're only providing accurate and legal to ride information. 79 active Get the Dirt pages refers to information provided on the OHV website about resources, rules of operation, and what to expect when you get out to your local OHV recreation site. Shifting gears to our budget account 4285, I'd like to draw your attention to the program expenditures for the biennium depicted in the graphic on viewers' right. Total program expenditures for the biennium are $309,747. They're broken up into personnel costs, operating, and travel, with a few number of minor details. Back here, the program generates slightly over $2 million of revenue each year, and this is after the registrations are processed by the Department of Motor Vehicles. We receive about $2 million each biennium for OHV grants. As I mentioned earlier, we're awarding approximately $1 million in grants each year. However, we request an annual budget of $1.5 million to cover new grant awards, as well as all of the previous year's grants that aren't necessarily completed in one year. At the end of fiscal year 2023, we expect to have an ending reserve balance of $1,481,273. The intent here is to reduce the amount of dollars we have in the reserve of this revolving account so that we can show our registration dollars are being put on the ground for important projects. And that's what we really want to stress, is that the funding is coming into the account on off-highway vehicles, and it's going right back out on the ground statewide. You'll note the bottom table shows one full-time employee for the next biennium. The next slide is to cover our budget enhancements. Over the past 2 years, we've noticed that through our grants, while we want umbrella uniform messaging, we're finding that our messaging and our outreach differs between different grant projects and their associated activities. So getting into our enhancements, we're requesting some more funding for the program to better unify that messaging to the OHV community. The first item is enhancement 251, and that involves the purchase of an enclosed trailer and basic vehicle maintenance. Currently, we have a stack of outreach materials providing education and registration, methods, steps to get your registration sticker, and we've been dispersing these materials through the grants statewide. We also have a OHV, off-highway vehicle UTV, funded in part by a grant from the Yamaha Outdoor Access Initiative. This UTV is sits at the Washoe Yard and currently it's exposed to the elements. We just want to provide some shelter for that. And then fiscal year 2023, we're seeking $2,000 just to maintain 3 pieces of equipment. That's the state admin vehicle, the OHV, and the trailer. E252, we're requesting increased funding for out-of-state travel, and that's to better coordinate with our neighboring states that have longer running OHV programs. We want to kind of strategize and pick and choose the best options from those neighboring states and implement them here in Nevada. E253 is basic website maintenance services and includes a forwarding address from a separate hosting site. E255 restores funding for grant projects. This goes back to my previous statement about wanting to get our funding out of reserve accounts and onto the ground in the form of grant projects. This comes from number 1, available funding, and then number 2, the ability to go out and solicit grant projects from Nevada communities. And then enhancement 710 replaces computer hardware and IT costs that's only going to be incurred in FY 2023, and it is in line with the state's mandated equipment replacement cycle. That concludes the details of my budget presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. And we actually do have a number of questions coming in from members. So the first question will come from Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Mr. Narcady, it's good to see you again. So I appreciate the statements that have been made and the plan to get more dollars out onto the ground in the form of grants. I have one or maybe a couple questions. Could you just give us a little bit more background on, and I think you mentioned this briefly, how you allocate grants, but then the funding for them, there's a lag in that actually getting out the door. And so as a result, it looks like the amount that's been budgeted in previous fiscal years has not been utilized. So can you just give us a little bit more background into how the process works and why we haven't seen those amounts kind of line up with the previous grant allocations, and what the timeline tends to look like for some of these projects from the date of award to completion?
Thank you for the question, Assemblyperson Watts. Chair Miller, through Chair Miller to Assemblyperson Watts.
Please go direct. You may go direct.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, the OHV grant program, we watch it with a fine-tooth comb. The grant awards are completed annually through our 9-member OHV commission, and then they kind of come to my desk to make sure that the budgets that are requested are exactly what's being funded on the ground. The OHV grant program is a reimbursement grant, so we go back and forth with our grantees, making sure that all of their receipts that they're submitting and time cards total the amount that they're requesting. Admittedly, when I first came into the program, I was expecting these grant projects to go quickly and on an annual basis. Right now, we're finding that our education and outreach funding is spent faster than some of the larger projects like trail building. Trail building requires a number of environmental assessments or documents, especially if they're taking place on federal land. And to go through that process is what is taking a lot of time on the trail building and infrastructure projects. And those are typically the larger funding amounts. One example is the Winnemucca Sand Dunes. We're working with the Bureau of Land Management out in Winnemucca in Humboldt County to build a new facility for their sand dunes recreation site, and simply putting obligating funding to the project doesn't mean that we can start building the next day. Right now, we're going through the different environmental impacts of increasing visitor use in that site, as well as all of the different infrastructure that will be built. So the construction projects, I would say at a minimum, take 2 years to complete. Education and outreach projects we're trying to do on an annual basis and keep funding past successful projects.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And if I may very quickly follow up, Madam Chair. So, thank you. So, and then, you gave a good overview of the revenue that's coming in into your agency. And can you just speak a little bit to how the reserves have been developed? Is that a result of this kind of lag that we see in the grant allocations getting out the door? Or was it the result of some more cautious budgeting to make sure that that the agency is sound? And yeah, so could you just speak a little bit of how we got these reserves at this excess level that we're now looking to move them back into the grant program?
Thank you, Assemblyman Watts. Nikhil Narkade for the record. The program, as I understand, was started in 2012, and that's when we began building these reserves. Once it came into Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, we were able to sink our teeth into funding grant projects, putting the money on the ground in 2016. And since that time, we haven't spent all of the funding that we're allowed to because we're growing sustainably in that we don't want to just spend money with no kind of return on that investment. Annually, we don't spend all of the money that we're allocated. And while we try and diminish those reserves, we continue to solicit like positive grant programs.
Thank you very much. I truly appreciate that response and your note about trying to grow sustainably and make sure that the dollars that are being deployed are being deployed in a way that is thoughtful and is having the maximum impact. Thank you for the questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Assemblywoman Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have several questions, if I might. First, sir, I know you're new to this program, but I will let you know that since the time I've become a legislator, this is my fourth session, I've been trying to get rid of the OHV program. I was always concerned about this registration process and what the funds were going to be used for. And actually, it seems like my fears are actually realized in that you're building up a lot of money in there and not really putting it back out, regardless of why you say that is. Any thought to actually decreasing the amount of the fees?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Titus. Nikhil Narkade for the record. The fees are mandated by NRS to be within $20 and maximum of $30. And right now we're at the minimum there. It's a $20 fee, annual registration fee with a $1 technology fee. And in the eyes of the OHV user, that's kind of a drop in the bucket when you're filling your gas tank each day. So right now,
Sorry, I beg to differ with you as an OHV user, and it may not be a drop in the bucket to some. You mentioned you had some equipment or that you did, and you had some matching fund from the federal government. How much monies have you actually gotten matching fund from the federal government?
So that should be clarified. We received a grant, not from the federal government, from the Yamaha Outdoor Access Initiative. And that was kind of a rebate on the piece of equipment that we purchased, a OHV. And when I did reference federal funding, that was for a specific grant project, the Nevada Mapping Collaborative.
And on that Nevada mapping, how much federal fundings did you get?
That project is funded at approximately $100,000 per year since 2018, and that's matching the state fund of the same amount.
So it's equal matching on that?
Correct.
Thank you. And can you tell me how much money you're actually spent from those fees under the law enforcement? How much have you granted in law enforcement, and what type of projects did you actually fund regarding law enforcement?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Titus. I shouldn't quote a specific amount, but I can describe the law enforcement projects and where they are across the state. We're working with the Las Vegas Metro Police Department out of Moapa Valley. They received OHV funding. Mesquite Police Department, also in Clark County, receives OHV funding. Across the state, we also partner with the county sheriff's departments to provide them with equipment for law enforcement activities, but also to bolster some of the safety training. And that's being put into place. I'm going to rattle off the counties here, but in Elko County, Humboldt County, Churchill County, and most recently Carson City.
So thank you. I appreciate that. And I would like to see a breakdown of all where those funding and those projects have gone, and I'm sure the other committee would like to see that. So, Madam Chair, if that's okay, I could ask that he submit it to the staff so that we can actually see
Absolutely.
of where those grants have been. I am just concerned with Assemblyman Watts' line of questioning about the increasing reserves that are there. And I just don't accept that last year you weren't able to do anything because of the COVID crisis, because frankly, our parks and our country and every single area in the state of Nevada that could possibly have a OHV site, they were packed because folks wanted to get outside. So I think there was an increased utilization, and I worry about the impact on our natural environment. And I'm all supportive of actually trails and designated riding areas so that we don't destroy the other area that we want to protect. So I'd really like to see a more detailed use of what you're doing with the monies and where this is going, and encourage you to be a little bit more proactive on getting these funds out where they need to go. So thank you, Madam Chair, for the line of questioning.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Next, we have Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Chair Miller. Good morning, Mr. Narcady. I want to go back to slide 4 and about the grant awards. And if the map is any indicator of where the awards went, I don't know if it's the dollar amount, it's indicative of the dollar amount, but if it's any indicator, it seems as if the most populous county in the state that is paying a really good portion of all the fees going into this grant program got relatively few projects. Is there any, do you know what the revenue breakdown is across the state that goes into this program from registrations, and then roughly what the breakdown is and where the money was spent? If those little dots mean dollars, then it was 80% of it was spent out of Clark County. And I know my neighbors, and I know I do, and I know my family does, all contribute to that fund. And many folks down in my neck of the woods do. Do you have rough estimates on the breakdown between spending and revenue?
Thank you, Senator Brooks. Nikhil Narkade for the record. I'm going to try and transfer to my PowerPoint. Can you all see slide 4?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Currently, there's no, yes, I do have revenue by county, and I'm happy to provide those numbers afterwards. That's a simple Excel spreadsheet. Right now, there's no mechanism to guarantee that the revenue generated in Clark County is only spent in Clark County. We're required to judge all of the grants that come in statewide equally for this funding. The colored dots, yes, you're correct. They do represent the projects in Clark County since 2019. And then I guess it will take a closer look, but there are gray dots on here that represent projects in seasons past. Again, going back to the education and outreach component for finding these projects, that's really where it takes the proactive legwork to make sure that we're planning a year in advance such that projects come in during the open grant period.
May I have a follow-up, Chair Miller?
Yes, please, Senator.
Yeah, so I would just, on behalf of the senator, I would urge you to be more proactive to spend that Clark County money that you raised in Clark County. And you say there's no mechanism, but the mechanism's you. This is your program, and so I would love to see you. I'm assuming you're in Carson City, and I would love to see you maybe work more with the most populous county in the state to really expand some of those opportunities for the folks down there.
Thank you, Senator Brooks, and that is noted.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you, Chair. I had a question related to the work you're doing and the overlap with the Department of Outdoor Recreation. And do you guys collaborate, or have you collaborated yet on identifying projects that enhance that or the Office of Outdoor Recreation's activities in the state? And then I have a follow-up question after that.
Thank you, Assemblyperson Peters. I should note that I'm here today with Mr. Dominique Echegoyen, the Deputy Director of DCNR, and Colin Robertson, the Administrator of Outdoor Recreation. Mr. Robertson and I speak on a weekly basis, if not more frequently, and make sure that there is collaboration for those interagency grant projects. So yes, that communication is very clear.
And if I could, Dominique Echegoyen, Deputy Director of the Nevada Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, for the record. Yes, that is something we have been actively working towards as a department. Outdoor recreation certainly encompasses off-highway vehicle recreation, and we have been working with the new administrator for outdoor recreation to help manage this off-highway vehicles grant program. And that's something we're going to see more and more of as we move forward. We think that's working very well. We have a lot of different users who are interested in outdoor recreation, working together to figure out how best to manage these landscapes to ensure that we're not impacting these natural areas and that we're avoiding any of the conflicts that might exist between the user groups. So that is a great question, and it's something we're going to continue to try to improve on.
Awesome. That's exciting. And really, I think beneficial to the state to have that overlap. My other question has to do with, if I may, Chair, I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Has to do with your grant program. And I'm wondering about the difference between the reimbursement grants versus the grant program, and if there's barriers to entry for some projects because they don't have those upfront funds to potentially fund their programs. And if you've thought about allocating a portion of those grants to like seed programs that would be paid for upfront and then worked with through the department in kind of a different like supporting manner.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Peters. Nikhil Narkete, for the record. Currently, we only operate on a reimbursement basis, and to alleviate the stress on some of those smaller groups, we reimburse on a more frequent basis. So if there's an OHV club that doesn't have a ton of reserve funding in their accounts, then we break up that project into a month-by-month or week-by-week basis, so that right as soon as they submit their receipts, we're putting that funding back in their pocket. Currently, there's no procedure or plan to create a grant sub-program that puts money on the ground before the costs are incurred.
I would be curious if there's any statutory barriers to you for doing that, if you don't mind following up on your interpreted authority on a seed program like that.
Noted. Thank you, Assemblywoman Peters. I will be following up with any statutory limitations for a seeding program.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Not seeing any additional questions. Thank you so much on your presentation for this budget. We can go ahead and move on to our next budget, which is for state parks. And I believe we have Bob Mergel. I may have butchered that name as well, too. Please correct me.
Morning, Chair Miller. Yes, Bob Mergel, Administrator for Division of State Parks, for the record. I'm technology challenged, so we'll see how this goes.
So far, so good. And if, do you mind if we stop after each budget for questions? Does that flow correctly with your presentation, or would you rather do the entire presentation and we circle back on our questions?
I'm happy to do it either way. So as we get to each, I only have one budget account, 4162. But I can pause throughout it and see if there's any questions so far.
Yes, I probably should. I misspoke. I meant like different line item. if we could do it that way, sure.
Am I sharing this thing?
Not yet.
So this is broadcast. Would you like us to walk you through how to share that presentation? You'll want to go to share screen at the bottom of Zoom. And from the menu, and then press that button.
I have technical support coming in. So
Perfect.
Let me share this.
do I do escape out of this?
Yeah. They're all one.
That looks better. Perfect. Thank you.
We can see it now. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Good morning, Chair Miller and members of the committee. My name is Bob Mergell, Administrator for the Division of State Parks. So let's see if we can work our way through this thing. All right. Our mission is to develop and manage Nevada's system of parks and recreation areas, contribute to a vibrant economy, and protect areas of scenic, historic, and scientific importance. In other words, we get to manage all the cool stuff that Nevada has to offer and make sure that it's available for our grandchildren's grandchildren. So what we do, we manage 27 parks. They're spread out throughout the state, and we manage those in 4 regions, western, eastern, southern, and then the Lake Tahoe area is its own region. We offer a number of interpretive programs throughout the year. Those are pre-COVID numbers, but we did manage to still do some programming even during the COVID pandemic, just with significant decreases in the numbers of people that we allowed to show up to those programs. We provide affordable recreation opportunities for families and just people in general. So I think we all recognize the health benefits in this COVID pandemic really, I guess, brought that to the forefront, that it is just good for people to get outdoors. Pandemic or no pandemic, it's just a healthy place to be. So our budget is, as you can see, about split between user fees and general fund is where our revenue comes from. There's some other sources thrown in there. Marina gas tax is the next largest chunk, and then some other miscellaneous revenue, but largely we're dependent on general fund and user fees. And then here's our expenditures. As you can see, the vast majority of our money goes to personnel. It takes people to run parks and keep them open. So that's where the vast majority of our budget is spent. The rest of it is operating, and then you can see the other smaller portions there, but primarily people, and then the material that it takes to keep parks open and safe and clean for the public. So now we'll run through these, and I guess I'll pause at each one and see if there's any questions, if that's how you prefer to do it.
No, actually, I think maybe we'd like to dig a little more into each one before we ask the question.
Okay. So E252 is additional funding for Cap 4. Category 4 is our operating budget. So that's where all of our cleaning supplies, operating supplies, all that type of stuff. So as you can all imagine, during the pandemic, we've always kept our bathrooms clean, but the frequency has had to increase. So we've, as visitation increases, so does the impacts to our facilities. So we're going to have to clean more frequently when there's more visitors. The next category, the 254, is temporary office building at Vancicle. So Vancicle by State Park, we have a person and some seasonal staff up there, but there are no buildings up there yet. There's a restroom, picnic tables, that type of stuff. It gets a pretty significant amount of walk-in use, day use up there. So we do need a place for our one employee to be able to get on their computer and check emails, do their timesheets, all that type of administrative stuff that we still have to do. The next one is contract costs for the Biennial State Parks Academy. So several sessions ago, we were able to establish funding to do a biannual State Park Academy. So once every 2 years, we try to get as many of our employees together in one place as possible to go through various things like personnel, procedural updates, and we bring in other outdoor recreation professionals, whether it's from the National Park Service or BLM, the Forest Service, but we bring in speakers to speak on a variety of different topics. It allows a lot of collaboration and make sure that we're addressing issues statewide. So this is adding some extra costs for the contract costs. When we do that, we enter into a contract with generally a hotel, casino, some type of thing that allows for like a convention center room or some place that we can actually all gather. And then lastly on this page, and then I'll ask if there's any questions for anything on this page. The last item is additional funding in Cap 59, which is our utility category. So we've increased campgrounds with hookups, for instance. We've put in cabins, a lot of various things that have increased our utility costs. And so this is looking to make that category, I guess, whole. So I'm happy to answer any questions on this page before we go to the next.
Okay. Senator Dennis, I know you have a question. Did you want to ask that now or did you want to wait?
I can wait till he's done.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Please continue.
Okay, sure. So again, Bob Miguel for the record. The next one is the replacement of tourism funding. So as everybody I'm sure is aware, the tourism's budget comes primarily, almost exclusively from room tax. So with a lack of people occupying beds down in the, well, I guess statewide really, it impacted their budget significantly. So we normally get a transfer from tourism. They were not able to do that because they just didn't have the money to do it. So this category contemplates not getting that transfer in fiscal year 22. And then they're anticipating to be able to go ahead and give us the transfer again in 23. But we're asking for general fund to offset that lack of a transfer in 22. E262 is additional funding for Cat 7, which is our buildings and grounds maintenance. Again, as I mentioned, our visitation continues to go up. That's more wear and tear on all of our facilities. And we have to do the maintenance to those facilities in order to keep them open to the public. E263 is additional funding for Cat 4 for vehicle maintenance and operational costs for new facilities and increased visitation. Same thing, you can see the trend here. Visitation, the increased visitation and the age of our infrastructure carries through to every part of our budget. E710 is replacement computers per the EATS replacement schedule. So this is asking for replacement computers for computers that have exceeded their age per the EATS replacement schedule. E712, establishment of a radio replacement schedule. So we are heavily dependent on radio communications in order to fulfill public safety requirements and be able to communicate from staff to staff. Well, all of those radios need to be replaced on occasion. They all have a life expectancy, if you will, and we're really good at using things throughout their life expectancy and then keeping them around for many more years after that. But at some point, you just can't get parts for replacement radios. The next slide is, this shows the reduction in the tourism funds. And as you can see, there's still a reduction in fiscal year 23. That's the transfer that we get from tourism basically covers two different things. Part of it goes to brochure purchases, and then part of it goes to seasonal funding. So the seasonal funding, they're still going to be able to transfer the money to help us out with that, but not for the brochures. E800 is the cost allocation that's associated with the director's office position changes. E900, transfer of the grants and project analysts. So last session, we got a grants and programs analyst to run the education, the outdoor education grant program. That grant program is being shifted over to the Division of Outdoor Recreation. It'll be a better fit over there. So this is showing that transfer out of our budget. And then E680 is a reduction to general fund and an increase to user fees. So we were asked to contemplate a reduction to our budget. As I showed you earlier, a reduction to our budget of any significance would have resulted in losing staff, and we just can't keep parks open and safe if we lose anybody. So we asked instead to do a minor increase to our fees, and specifically to just our annual permit sales, and to implement an out-of-state user fee to people coming into our parks without Nevada registered vehicles. So this was an effort to offset a potential reduction. Before I go into the division challenges, do you want me to pause and see if there's questions specific, or you want me to just run through these last two slides? And maybe that's a question.
Let's go ahead and go finish the slides, and then we'll start with questions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the division challenges, as I've said throughout my presentation, doing more with less. We're having more and more visitors. We're increasing our amount of things that we're offering to the people. Like I said, cabins, hookups are letting people stay longer. But our budget stays pretty flat. So costs go up, we're providing more, but our budget is largely flat. So it's more and more of a struggle to maintain things to the level that we need to do. Recruitment and retention is getting harder and harder. For the first time in a long time, we actually had to go outside of our agency in order to hire a park supervisor. That usually doesn't happen. Usually we have promotions, but people are staying where they're at, and it's just getting harder and harder to fill vacancies. We've had numerous vacancies over this last year that we filled or tried to fill, and the people just didn't accept the job, or filled it and then they couldn't pass the background check, or a variety of reasons. So that's just a trend that we're recognizing, that it's just harder and harder to find qualified people. Embracing new technology. I think most of the people on the committee might already be aware we're trying to implement a online reservation system, and we've been trying to put in self-pay fee kiosks in order to make it easier for people to pay when they show up to the parks, and quite frankly also make it more likely that the state will get that revenue rather than have somebody break into our fee tube and steal it before we can get to it. So providing more fee options, and preferably more digital or electronic methods of payment, so that we're not dealing with cash. And also outdated collection methods for tracking visitation. We rely on a bunch of, logs that you just have to fill out, and then hope they don't get lost in somebody's patrol truck. And then that information has to get input into a spreadsheet and then transferred to another office where somebody takes that information and consolidates it into a larger spreadsheet. We're trying to get away from that to try to make things use technology to our benefit and make things a lot more streamlined process. And then, as I mentioned earlier, our aging facilities, it's just requiring more and more maintenance in order to keep those things open. As any homeowners know, the older your house gets, the more stuff breaks, and then you just have to fix it and try to keep everything functioning properly. Our maintenance staff are spread extremely thin. We have really less than one park maintenance person for every 2 parks that we have out there. So that's a struggle to keep stuff operational. And then resource protection, just the increased visitation by first-time users. I think everybody saw that in the news a lot over the last year. People going outside recreating, but then leaving their trash behind because they're either new to outdoor recreation and they don't know the whole pack it in, pack it out, or leave no trace kind of philosophies. So just trying to have a broader outreach for getting that message out to more and more people. And we are doing that through, again, the Division of Outdoor Recreation and reaching out to federal partners. We're all trying to have kind of that unified message to people so that we can teach people how to be good users of outdoor recreation facilities. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you or the committee may have.
Great, thank you. We actually will start with Senator Brooks. I'm sorry, Senator Dennis has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to talk about you're proposing an increase in the out-of-state fees. Talk a little bit about that. I assume you did some research and some, how do we compare to other states when we do that? And if there is any have you seen any negative consequence that could come from that?
Thank you, Senator Brooks. Bob Mergell again for the record. Yes, we've reached out to a number of states. I'm a member of the National Association of State Park Directors, so it's all of the administrators or directors from around the country. Many states already have had in place an out-of-state charge, and many others implemented one through this COVID process for a variety of reasons, largely because, as everybody knows, the economy took a hit, and so did people's budgets, and so it was a fee generating or revenue generating opportunity. But it also tried to encourage people to stay a little bit closer to home during the pandemic as well. But there's, I guess, many more reasons that agencies have implemented that. In our case, we get a large number of visitors that come from out of state. But the local Nevada residents are the ones that are paying the majority of the costs through various taxes and being residents of the state of Nevada. So a $5 increase for the users coming from out of state is a pretty minimal increase. And the states that have implemented it, Oregon specifically, their increase went up even more than ours in an effort to actually try to decrease the number of people that were coming into Oregon to camp. And I talked to the director up there, and their reservations didn't drop at all. In fact, they just continued to go up. So it had zero impact on the actual number of visitors going to Oregon from out of state.
So that's interesting. You say they raised theirs to decrease the out-of-state usage?
That's correct.
Interesting. Is that because the out-of-state folks wear it down faster? I mean, why would you want to decrease that? Or why would they want to?
Bob Mergell again for the record. In that particular instance, they did it in order to try to reduce the number of people that were traveling to there during the COVID pandemic. So
I see.
That was very specific to 2020. That was part of their they're, I'm not sure what their board is called, but basically their board of counties wanted to decrease the number of people coming into their counties from outside of the state. So they decided to implement that fee because they couldn't exactly say you're not allowed to come into Oregon. So they just tried to do some things to persuade people to camp other places. And like I said, it didn't really have the impact that they were looking for in that regard. It did increase their fees.
Right. You know, and I mean, $5 seems reasonable. How do you identify somebody from somebody being from out of state?
Bob Margell, for the record, what we did this time, this is something that we actually did before, but last time it was a discount for Nevada residents is how it was actually put out the last time. In essence, it was the exact same thing. But this way, what we're doing is it's based on the license plate that's on the vehicle. So if your vehicle isn't registered in Nevada, then you're going to pay the out-of-state fee for coming into the state. That's what we were trying to do, is make it a little bit faster getting people through the fee booths at busy parks. The last time when it was Nevada resident discount, people would come in with California plates, Arizona plates, whatever, but then they would spend 5 minutes digging in their trunk looking for their ID that showed that they were actually a Nevada resident. Well, we're trying to make it simpler. We just look at the license plate. If it's a Nevada plate, you get in for the normal price. If it's a plate from out of state, then if it's a rental car that you happen to get and it has out of state plates, I'm sorry, but we just have to try to expedite people through the fee booth as quick as we can.
I see. Yeah, I was going to say that, you know, some people, when they travel, will rent a car rather than put the miles on their own car. So, but I get what you're talking about as far as being able to expedite. So that, okay. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you. Oh, I know I have one other, just a follow up to something else that you said. You talked about the kiosks and a different way, or the online reservation system. Are those, so you currently don't have an online reservation system?
Bob Margell, for the record, no, we're the last state in the country to not have a reservation system. So we're rectifying that now.
Okay, that's good. That's good, because everybody's used to using those. So I'm surprised that we haven't done it sooner. And what are the kiosks? I mean, you talked about a kiosk. How does that function out in the middle of nowhere?
Bob Margell, for the record, they actually use a variety of technologies. So the kiosks that we're getting, they have the capability to run off of solar power if we don't have power. They have the ability to transmit the data either through fiber optic, if we happen to have fiber optic in that area, through cellular mechanism, or through satellite. So we're going to be able to put these in a lot of places that we weren't expecting to be able to put them in, quite frankly. But the technology's there so that we're going to be able to put them in at most of the parks that are at least are more highly visited parks. And then just to follow up with that, one of the requirements that we've put into the RFP for the new reservation system is that they're able to synchronize data. So if somebody shows up and the fee booth is closed, for instance, they can pay or check in, if you will, with that self-pay kiosk.
Oh, that's great. So, and do we anticipate that this will increase revenues, right? For people that, like some of those areas where they could go in and not have to pay because nobody's there to collect it?
Bob Margell, for the record, I honestly don't know if that's going to increase. It will increase people's ability to pay. For instance, I rarely ever have cash because when I do, my wife or my kids take it anyway. So when I go somewhere, if they don't take a debit card, I'm not getting that thing, whatever that thing is. So we're the same way. If you drive out to Wild Horse, for instance, and you didn't bring cash with you, and you get there and there's no other mechanism to pay, then you're just not going to pay. You're just going to go in. You're not going to turn around and drive back to Elko 67 miles to, break your 20 or whatever. So
Right.
in that regard, yes, I believe that people will pay more often because it will be easier for them to do. As far as the people that don't pay until one of our rangers show up because they figure they won't bother paying the fee until we show up. That philosophy, I don't think is going to change for those people until we, finally write them a citation and they realize it's cheaper to just pay it up front.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Brooks?
Thank you, Chair Miller. My question is around your E262 decision unit, and it's requesting an additional. It looks like a general fund appropriations of $252,000 in each year of the biennium, additional general fund, and we have increased visitors there in fees, and it appears as if the budgets that currently are sufficient for the ongoing maintenance and of the facilities. Can you just discuss the feasibility of utilizing the account for maintenance of state parks and the account for maintenance of state park facilities and grounds to actually support these ongoing costs?
Bob Miguel for the record. So our Cat 7 is your routine maintenance, I guess, items, if you will, the stuff that just happens all the time. Light switches breaking or light bulbs burning out or stuff that you just know they're just operational things that just happen all the time. Our account for parks maintenance, if our is for those unforeseen things and typically larger things that an individual park budget can't support. So the Cat 7 is a budget that's managed at the park level. And so if something breaks, the maintenance person just contacts the accounting person for the region. They get a PO, they go down, they buy the thing, and they make the repair. They don't have to ask anybody. They know how much is in their budget. They use it and they go make those repairs. If something is significant, if it's a larger break and it's something that the park can't cover, for instance, I just saw a report came across my desk yesterday that somebody decided to pull down all of our light towers at Lahontan in the day-use area. So there's, I think, 6 light poles that we're going to have to go in and replace. That's more than the park budget can handle. So we're going to have to use our larger park maintenance account in order to make those repairs.
Thank you. Does your proposed Senate Bill 53 that allows you kind of to just float that around regionally as opposed to individual parks and facilities, does that kind of help alleviate that issue?
Bob Miguel for the record, that will help smaller parks, for instance, Lahontan, where that particular thing happened, they have a pretty decent utility surcharge account. So they would be able to handle that better. But if Berlin, for instance, had all of their solar panels destroyed or damaged or need to be replaced, they don't have a utility surcharge account with a large enough balance in it to make those repairs. So they would have to be able to tap into that region account. So that's what we're trying to fix with that bill.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I see a theme here. People need to just be cool when they go to our Nevada state parks and facilities.
I would appreciate that.
Thank you, Senator. We also have a few questions from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my questions are on the E257, and during your presentation of slide 9, you discussed some of the challenges that you're having with recruitment and retention, hard time to fill vacancies. So, and as we've lived through COVID, we've seen how we haven't had the tourism that we have become accustomed to in our state, which has reduced the amount that's in the Commission on Tourism Fund. So can you tell us what impact the agency's operation is anticipating if the recommendation to replace the revenue from the Commission on Tourism with general fund appropriations is not approved to support your seasonal staffing?
Bob Miguel, for the record, that's a good question, and I probably don't have a great answer for it. If we don't get that funding, if that transfer doesn't take place, and we don't find a mechanism to offset those seasonal funds that we need, our seasonals are really what keep our parks open and operational. We can't not have seasonals. That can't happen. We just would not be able to keep parks open. We definitely wouldn't be able to keep our facilities clean and operational. So if that doesn't happen, I honestly don't know what we'll do. We'll have to do something. But I wish I had a better answer for you. I don't know how I would offset that $403,000.
I appreciate your honesty with that. And along the same line, that those funds also was what you used for the printing of the brochures. Are there any alternative funding sources that you've found or thought about to continue with the printing of the state parks brochures?
Bob Miguel, for the record, thank you for the question. Yes, that one we can help to alleviate. So we have a gift shop program, and the money that we bring in from the sales at the gift shops, it isn't like a crazy amount of money, but it's enough money that we can then do a grant because that money is used specifically for interpretive programming. So our brochures definitely qualify as interpretive programming. So we can still handle the brochure printing when we need to.
Thank you. Happy to hear that you found an alternative for that. We do need to get the word out. We need people to come to our parks, but we need them to be responsible while they're in our parks as well. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. I believe we have a question from Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Chair Miller. I don't know if I missed this, but I didn't see it anywhere in your presentation, and it's about the Elgin Schoolhouse site improvements. And there was a one-time fund appropriation in the last session for $20,000. I think it was, $20,000 each year of the biennium. And the budget currently has that continuing in each year of this future biennium. Has the agency identified any alternative funding sources that could be used to support the Elgin Schoolhouse site improvements besides general fund?
Bob Miguel, thank you for the question. So we were able to build that the one-time money that we got for Elgin, we were able to build in under our 2 times cap. So we recognized that we need to continue to make improvements at Elgin. So we wanted to do everything that we could to continue that process. As far as outside funding sources, the only, I guess, funding sources that we're looking at right now to help with improvements there would be Land and Water Conservation Fund programming, which is a federal grant program that we administer. And it's a 50-50 match. So any project that we do, we could cover, half with state park funding, whether that was that park maintenance account or this funding that we're putting into the budget. And then we can, in essence, double that money if we use a qualifying land and water conservation fund grant for that project.
So basically, you're looking at supplementing the spending by matching funds as opposed to alternatively replacing these funds with something else.
Bob Margell, for the record, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Any additional questions from members? I'm sorry, Senator Dennis?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up to that. What's the visitation looking like out in Elton?
Bob Margell, for the record, I don't have those figures with me, but I could certainly get them to you.
Okay, I'm just wondering, since I remember when we created this, and I just wondered if it had increased and, you know, and if people are hearing about it and going out there.
Bob Margell, for the record, we don't have like actual traffic counters out there. So really what we do is we just count visitors when we actually meet up with them out there. So with this, with COVID, we really didn't do a lot of that type of outreach because we weren't encouraging people to come together in groups. So 2020, I would have to say we probably would see a decrease out there. But I'm like I said, I'm happy to forward the committee our visitation numbers for out there if you would like those.
Yeah, I'm just wondering. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Senator. Okay, with that, thank you so much for your presentation. We can go ahead and move on to the next budget. We have state lands, and I believe presented by Mr. Donahue. Administrator Donahue, are you with us? Oh, we're ready. I see you now. Yes, we're ready whenever you are.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Click there. Madam Chair, we're just working to bring up our presentation. If you bear with us just one moment, please.
Absolutely, we completely understand.
Thank you.
This is broadcast. Let me know if you need any assistance.
I think we've got it.
Okay.
Good, Ellery?
I think so, but I'm not sure how to share the screen just yet.
There's a green button on the bottom of the Zoom meeting. And so you're just going to press that and then find your presentation and click on that.
Yeah.
I think so. Can everybody see the presentation?
It looks great.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, for your indulgence, your patience. Good morning. My name is Charlie Donahue, and I serve as the administrator for the Division of State Lands. With me here today is Ellery Stoller. She's the agency deputy administrator. What you'll hear during the presentation is that the Division of State Lands is rather small, but we have a lot of different programs. As you heard in Parks presentations, they've had a number of vacancies. And so as the Division of State Lands, one of the things when you're a small agency, you have vacancies, you get an opportunity to do a lot of things that maybe you didn't know you were going to be asked for to do by your administrator. That was the case this past summer. Ellery was the one who built our budget, so my plan is to turn it over to her, and she's going to run this presentation and walk you through our budget, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. Ellery?
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Ellery Stoller.
And thank you for the opportunity to present the governor's recommended budget for budget account 4173. As Charlie mentioned, our agency is a small division within the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. And though we're small, we have a broad set of responsibilities. Our mission is to uphold Nevada's conservation values through land stewardship, environmental improvement, and responsible land use planning. We operate in 3 core program areas. We have 5 land agents led by a supervisory land agent who run our state land office. They acquire and dispose of land on behalf of other state agencies in fulfillment of their missions. And once we acquire property, we take title in the name of the state of Nevada and then assign that property to a state agency for their day-to-day management. We also authorize the third-party use and occupancy of state land. This includes the state's sovereign lands. So for example, we issue easements for a utility corridor that runs across state land. We also issue permits for piers and buoys that occupy the state-owned lake bed of Lake Tahoe. Finally, we manage land records. We do this both electronically with our land management system database and also in hard copy form in our climate controlled vault. We have records that go back to the time of statehood. The Nevada Division of State Lands, we house the Nevada Tahoe Resource Team. The team is responsible for implementing the Environmental Improvement Program for the state of Nevada. This is a bond-funded program that results in implementation of capital projects that benefit resource areas like forest health, water quality, sensitive species, recreation, and also for the control and eradication of aquatic invasive species. We have a multi-agency, multidisciplinary team that runs that program. We also have a forester position that manages our urban lots program. The state holds title to nearly 500 undeveloped sensitive lots in Lake Tahoe that are managed for their conservation values. And we also have a land agent on the Tahoe team that runs our Nevada Land Bank program. This is run through a memorandum of understanding with the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. We operate that program on their behalf. Finally, our agency houses the State Land Use Planning Agency. This is a planning agency of 1 FTE. This individual has a number of different responsibilities, including managing the state lands portfolio, providing technical assistance as requested by local jurisdictions. He also serves as staff to the State Land Use Planning Advisory Council, the Nevada Joint Military Affairs Committee, and the Nevada Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. This individual also runs the Nevada State Clearinghouse. This is the single point of contact for federal actions that may have a significant impact on the environment. Our proposed budget for the next biennium is just over $4 million. And as you can see by this graph here, we are primarily a general fund funded agency at about 78% general fund appropriations. Although our budget is small, it is complex. We also receive revenue in the form of these smaller revenue sources. TRPA excess coverage mitigation funds support the Nevada Land Bank program. We have general obligation bond funding that supports our environmental improvement program. We are a participant in the 5-year Department of Energy federal grant that funds our land use planner. Our Lake Tahoe license plate program is a robust grant program that also funds 50% of our environmental scientists on the Tahoe team. And then we also have other revenue sources, the most prominent of which is our sportsman fees collected by the Nevada Department of Wildlife that support a land agent dedicated to endow on our state land office. We are proposing just this handful of revisions to our biennial budget. The first is just a modest general fund request to cover state land's share of the cost for a software license. This is a shared cost among 4 divisions within the department. In addition, we are proposing a non-general fund request to support our environmental scientist on the Tahoe team attending an annual hydrology, stream restoration, or water quality conference. The final 3 enhancement units you see on this slide are to achieve budget reduction targets. The first is to hold one of our land agent positions vacant. We would expect to hire this position in January of 2023. You might notice that the figures under this enhancement unit might look a little bit off, and in fact, they are a little bit off. So we're working with LCB fiscal staff as well as the GFO to provide a technical correction so that it does truly reflect the proposed vacancy. And then the next line item you see there is to reduce the contract maintenance for our land management system database. In addition, you will also see kind of a funny number there that the second year proposed reduction is a lot higher than the first year. And that is due to a math error. We discovered that $8,000 was actually deducted twice from our budget. So we are working with LCB Fiscal and GFO to make that technical correction. That second year number is more around $1,300. Finally, our last enhancement unit is to propose budget reductions in both our in-state and out-of-state travel categories. Fiscal year 20 was a challenging year for our agency, not just because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also because of, as Charlie mentioned, the vacancies that our agency experienced with promotions and retirements. We are looking forward to the future. We are very excited to report that we are backfilling our vacancies. And with the exception of the one land agent position we're proposing to hold vacant, we are in the process of filling the rest of our vacancies. We're looking forward to having a more complete staff. In terms of challenges, we don't really foresee significant challenges in the next biennium, but we are looking even further ahead into the future and see that potentially in fiscal year 24-25, we could foresee some equipment and service needs. For example, our forester, who manages our urban lots program, this is a field-based position, and he uses a 2002 Toyota Tacoma truck. This truck has been very reliable, but just recently had a major service issue where we had to replace the clutch. It has 188,000 miles on it. So we would look to replace that vehicle in the fiscal year 24-25 biennium. In addition, our land management system, which is our central database for the agency, it functions really well for our internal purposes, but we think that we can improve the way that it interfaces with the public and with our customers. For example, we would like to see that it be enhanced so that customers can submit their applications, their application fees, and potentially even track the status of their applications online. Finally, the last bullet in this category is that we, before the Great Recession, had 2 positions in our state land use planning agency. As a result of the recession, that was reduced down to 1. Those positions were general fund funded. as I stated earlier in the presentation, this position manages a lot of different responsibilities, and he's very capable. But as those responsibilities continue to increase, we would seek to balance that workload by adding another position to the State Land Use Planning Agency. Finally, our Tahoe resource team we have two positions that we've been working to transition from bond funding onto general fund appropriations. And this is because these two positions, the program manager and the administrative assistant, tend to have more of an administrative capacity rather than a true project implementation capacity. We've successfully transitioned the Cat 01 payroll expenses for those two positions to general fund appropriations, but their operating expenses continue to be funded through bond interest in budget account 4206, the Fund to Protect Lake Tahoe. We are projecting that that bond interest would be depleted by the middle of fiscal year 24. So we would be seeking to transition the operating expenses for those two positions fully over to general fund if possible in the next biennium. So those are some of our challenges and opportunities for the future. And that concludes my remarks. I'm available, and so is Administrator Donahue for any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. We do have a few questions. The first one from Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for the presentation. I noted one of the decision units around continuing to hold the state land agent position vacant and reducing your travel and IT costs. Can you discuss the anticipated impact of holding that position vacant over the biennium?
Thank you very much for the question, Ellery Stoller, for the record. We would anticipate the impact to be just a proportional share of that position's workload responsibility distributed among the other land agents that are in the state land office. May receive about a little over 300 applications per year. So that's a lot of projects to multitask among our small office. So we would expect to see kind of that incremental increase in the share of the workload in processing time and in completing projects.
Thank you. And if I can briefly follow up, what about the reduction in maintenance support for the land management systems? What impacts will that have?
Thank you for the question, Ellery Stoller, for the record. This land management system maintenance contract covers bug fixes, system errors, process efficiencies, things of that nature. We also have a business process analyst who is tech savvy and does a lot of different I guess support for our land management system. Our contract with the software development company that originally created the land management system is about $12,000 per year. So this would be a modest reduction in their capacity to assist the agency. So that's the answer to that question.
Thank you. So just to clarify, it sounds like there would be some additional time from one of your staff to help troubleshoot any major issues, and then there'd just be less efficiency improvements or bug fixes as a result of that reduction. Is that fair characterization?
Assemblyman Watts, this is Charlie Donahue for the record. I would say that's a fair assessment. As background, when the LMS system was developed for the agency, we also had approximately $20,000 in maintenance. And as we maintain that contract over time, we've noticed that we haven't had to use that. So we've slowly been whittling that down, and we both feel comfortable with this modest reduction with some of the staff support that we have in-house as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the questions.
Thank you, Assemblyman. We have some follow-up questions from Senator Dennis.
Thank you. I just want to follow up on that line of questioning because as I look at this, it says that you're going to reduce it. You're reducing by 16% in fiscal year 22, but 80% in 2023. Is that when you're talking about whittling down? Is that what you're talking about?
No, thank you for the question. That's a good opportunity to provide clarification. This is Ellery Stoller for the record. The fiscal year 23 number that you see there in the amount of $10,091, that was actually discovered to be a math error in our budget. It turns out that approximately $8,000 was deducted twice. And so we're currently working with LCB Fiscal and GFO in order to correct that. That number is more around $1,300.
Okay, so that's a more reasonable. But my other question though is you talked about you have a business analyst that can do some tech support, but you have this new system that was custom designed for you, right?
Yes, that's correct, Senator Charlie Donahue.
So somebody else developed it for you, and you've been paying a maintenance fee for that. And if you reduce that, at some point you're not going to have. I mean, if you have any major issues, you're going to have to go back to that person that developed it, right?
That's Charlie Donahue for the record. That's right, Senator. And what we've done is we've noticed that we haven't had to go back to the developer that as frequently as we did when it was first deployed. This system is nearing its 10th year. And it's one of the things that we've identified with some of the things Ellery talked about in her presentation, opportunities and challenges in the future is I think next biennium, we're probably going to be coming back for a tire request to modernize that and make it more accessible for some of the items that she talked about in terms of submitting applications electronically, payments electronically, things of that nature. A rather substantive enhancement.
Okay, well that makes more sense because that was going to be my next question. If you're going to follow up by because it's getting older and you need to replace it, are you going to be coming back? So that I appreciate that. It just worries me when you have a computer system that you're dependent on that somebody else wrote, and then you're reducing your support for it. Because if it goes down, then those processes become inhibited. So. Anyways, that's why I wanted to follow up on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may make a comment to that.
Yes, please.
Thank you. The agency has, in my mind, an extremely good relationship with the company that developed the software for our land management system, and they have spent quite a bit of time with our staff when we've had issues, and actually, in my mind, kind of tutored them or mentored them in terms of enabling us to kind of manage some of that system on our own without having to go back to them. And they're comfortable with that relationship. But I do believe it's in the next biennium, it's going to be time to really upgrade it.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, just a comment. That's where we're always just kind of a little hesitant because we've seen a lot of IT projects that run into problems, and a lot of times afterwards, because the either developer is no longer going to develop that product or other things. So when we ask those kind of questions, it's just because we're concerned because we've seen other projects fall through. So I appreciate the information. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
Charlie Donahue for the record. I think that's one of the things that when the agency went to the legislature 10 years ago and asked for the development of this system, I think everybody recognized that it was critical at that time. But in the wisdom of the agency head and the legislature, we were also afforded that maintenance money that enabled us to troubleshoot those minor little bugs at the outset. And we've gotten a lot of miles out of this system, and it's been extremely stable over the last number of years.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional questions from members? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you so much for this presentation, and we can move on to our next budget.
Thank you very much for your time, Madam Chair and members of the committee.
Thank you, Administrator. Our last budget for the day is the Division of Outdoor Recreation with Administrator Robertson. And we are ready whenever you are.
Can everyone see that and hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Good morning, Chair Miller, Senator Dennis, and members of the Joint Committee. My name is Colin Robertson, and I am privileged to be the first administrator of the new Nevada Division of Outdoor Recreation in the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. I am pleased to be here today to present a summary of this important new division's budget for the next biennium. The Division of Outdoor Recreation, ENDOR, was created to promote Nevada's outstanding outdoor recreation opportunities and the conservation of its natural environment, to grow Nevada's economy through outdoor recreation, and to educate the public about responsible recreation and healthy and active lives enriched by the outdoors. The Division of Outdoor Recreation's authority and responsibilities are outlined in NRS Chapter 407A. ENDOR is currently a division of 1, and I look forward to being able to recruit for 2 additional staff later this calendar year. ENDOR is part of the confluence of states, the alliance of 13 U.S. states that have created offices of outdoor recreation in the last 4 years to foster outdoor recreation's many benefits to the public and to the economy. In the first year, despite the pandemic, a great deal of effort has been invested in successfully standing up the Nevada Advisory Board on Outdoor Recreation, chaired by Lieutenant Governor Kate Marshall. I'm currently working very closely with the Nevada Division of State Parks to revise the Nevada Statewide Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, or SCORP. This important effort guides the focus and investment of federal land and water conservation fund dollars in Nevada, which are helpfully increasing in our state this year and in subsequent years by the passage in 2020 of the Great American Outdoors Act. The early work of ENDOR has focused on developing substantive, meaningful, and productive partnerships and collaborations with state agencies such as the Governor's Office of Economic Development and Travel Nevada, federal agencies such as the Humboldt-Toyabe National Forest and Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit of the U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management in Nevada, and USDA Rural Development, and numerous communities across the state, private sector organizations, both for and nonprofit, etc. ENDOR is contributing to efforts to grow and diversify Nevada's overall economy, focusing especially on the communities that are the gateways to Nevada's most beloved recreational opportunities. This work helps to develop the portion of the state's economy attributed to outdoor recreation, which in 2019 represented $5.5 billion of economic impact, 3.1% of the state's gross domestic product, and nearly 60,000 jobs, according to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis. The governor's recommended budget for ENDOR for the fiscal year 22-23 biennium is $1,058,368, all of which is general fund. The vast majority of this is tied to the division's 3 FTEs, as illustrated here. There is one enhancement in the governor's recommended budget, an E900 transfer of the Nevada Outdoor Education and Recreation Grant Program from the Division of State Parks to the Division of Outdoor Recreation. The mission and purposes of the Outdoor Education and Recreation Grant Program is closely aligned with the mission and goals of Endor, but was created by legislation separate from the legislation creating Endor in a 2019 session. Moving the Outdoor Education and Recreation Grant Program to Endor improves efficiencies and better aligns missions, purposes, and goals of divisions and programs within the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. A key challenge for Endor is driven by the scope of the division's mission and authority, the capacity of a very small agency with extremely limited resources to accomplish such an important mission in a state as large and geographically diverse as Nevada. Special opportunities exist, for example, to work with state and local agencies to advance the many well-documented benefits of outdoor recreation for underserved populations like those we have in Nevada. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for the opportunity to present a summary of the Division of Outdoor Recreation and our budget for the upcoming biennium. I'm very happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, Administrator. I know we have at least one from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for the presentation. I can hear the excitement in your voice about your position in this first year on. So thank you for that. But I have a question about the transfer. What are the anticipated benefits of transferring the Outdoor Education and Recreation Grant Program to the Division of Outdoor Recreation? I know you spoke about it briefly in your presentation, but could you just elaborate a little bit more on that?
Thank you for the question, Vice Chair Monroe Moreno. Thanks too for your comment. I have one of the very best jobs in state government, and I'm very happy to have it. The Outdoor Education and Recreation Grant Program is a tremendous idea and a wonderful program. I anticipate that some of the work that I'm doing at on the outdoor economy front for the state of Nevada will help to provide introduction to organizations with philanthropic mindsets to help increase funds that may be available for the sort of mission-driven purpose of the Outdoor Education and Recreation Grant Program. That was evidenced, I think, this year by not through the grant program specifically, but by work that I did with a private philanthropic donor to provide a grant to Get Outdoors Nevada during the height of the pandemic in Las Vegas, and to provide a small grant, at least for the purposes of introducing underserved children in Clark County to outdoor education and recreation opportunities in the form of a Camp in a Box program that was really well received and could have been expanded dramatically by increased dollars invested in it, but was a good start. And I anticipate that a similar opportunity may exist on the private side to match or amplify any state investment in the future.
Well, thank you for that. And I know of a few very young constituents that use the Camp in the Box. So thank you for your excitement. Thank you for what you're doing. And thank you for the answer to the question. And thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to ask it.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Any additional questions from members? All right, not seeing any additional questions, then thank you for that, Administrator. That will, Administrator Robertson, that will conclude our questions for this budget as well. We can then move on to our last item on the agenda, which is actually public comment. So broadcasting, you can open the lines for public comment. And again, just want to remind everyone that they will have 2 minutes to make public comment. And also to please state your name clearly for the record.
Thank you, Chair. Caller with the last three digits of 303. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Jerry North, Gerrinorth. Good morning, Chair Miller and members of the committees. My name is Jerry North. I'm a resident of Assembly District 12 and Senate District 21. I've been retired from CCSD since 2008 as a full-time teacher and have been a guest teacher from 2010 to 2020. I'm a member of the Nevada State Education Association Retired and the Clark Retired Education Association. I know how rising healthcare costs are a continuous worry for many Americans. Some Nevada educators, both teachers and support professionals, who are eligible to retire continue to work because they have no access to Medicare, having never paid into Social Security. Many have come to the conclusion that they will die on the job because working is the only way they can qualify and afford insurance. Workers who dedicate 3 or 4 decades to the state deserve better. Please keep in mind active and retired state workers need access to affordable health care when they retire. Members of NSEAR appreciate anything you can do to help contain the costs of health care and medicine. We ask you to consider undertaking a study to identify the status of state workers who do not qualify for Medicare and steps that could be taken to ensure that all workers have access to affordable health care and medicine in their golden years. Thank you for your time and all your efforts and all the efforts you all put into making Nevada a great place to live, work, play, and retire. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller with the last three digits of 732. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Hello, my name is Kyle Davis. That's KYLEDAVIS. And I'm here today on behalf of the Nevada Conservation League. The Nevada Conservation League would like to express our strong support for the programs outlined by the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources today. Our state parks are a valuable way for Nevadans to connect with the outdoors and are a mechanism for protecting our natural resources and helping us meet the goal of conserving 30% of our state's land and water by 2030. Creation of the Division of Outdoor Recreation was a priority of our organization in 2019, and we are excited by the steps the division has been able to take over the last biennium, despite the challenges brought on by the pandemic. As you have heard, the outdoors have provided a solace for Nevadans during these challenging times, and proper investment by the state is important to keep these opportunities available for our residents. Finally, we would like to express our support for the Lake Tahoe Environmental Improvement Program and the Conservation Bond Program, as authorized by AB 84 of the 2019 legislative session. We know that the details of this program were covered in the CIP budget a few weeks ago, but the program is largely administered through the Division of State Lands. It's important to understand that these bonds are the primary source of funding for the state for proactive, on-the-ground conservation. Reauthorizing this program was a top priority of our organization in 2019, and we support the implementation of the program as outlined. We also would ask for the committee to consider providing the funding for the program manager position that is currently slated to be held open until 2023. This position is crucial to many of the grant categories and opportunities for conservation work. Thank you for your consideration and time today.
Thank you, caller. And with that, Chair, there are no further callers on the line to provide public comment today.
Thank you. Well, with that, that concludes our agenda items for the day. I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Everyone have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.